let us all do we can to build a better future.
So this is a story that should be addressed and talked about. And I'm very curious and very frightened and unsure of what this means for the future. Now, I understand we all want to be safe. I understand that it's a dangerous world out there. I get it. Look, I live in Chicago. Chicago is a very dangerous city, but let's face it, I've been living here for most of my life. And more importantly, my family's been living in Chicago for entire generations now. And the thing is, when I see a major metropolitan city like New York City, for example, start deploying the National Guard all over their subways to check bags, I'm wondering, what are we giving up? Same time, too, when I was at O'Hare Airport, I just saw the security and the rat maze that people have to go through. And I remember a simpler time when you could take your loved one, walk with your loved one, all the way to the terminal, see them board the plane and see that plane actually fly off. That was something, an innocent time. But what have we given up? So let's talk about it. Well, New York governor says deployment aimed at deterring crime. To deploy another 250 police officers comes after several high-profile assaults. Subway crime down 15% in February versus same month in 2023. So, New York Governor Kathy Hochul will deploy 750 soldiers from the state's National Guard to help New York City police check commuters' bags in the busiest stations in the city's sprawling subway system, she announced on Wednesday. Okay, it's one thing to have site security there, but does crime really go down? And what is one of the leading causes of crime? That's right. We have economic disparity. All right. That's what's happening. Another 250 officers from the New York State Police and state-controlled Metropolitan Transport Authority Police will also join the effort, which Hochul said was intended to deter crime. She announced a deployment in response to recent high-profile assaults on commuters and transit workers. Crimes on the subway were down 15% in February compared to the same month in 2023, according to police data. Hochul, Democrats said commuters were not reassured by rattling off crime statistics. Saying things are getting better doesn't make you feel better, Hochul said, especially when you've just heard about someone being stabbed in the throat or thrown onto the subway tracks. There's a psychological impact, and there is. Soldiers of the New York National Guard, a military force jointly controlled by federal and state leaders, do not have arrest powers in peacetime, but will help police officers who do. Notice I said they wrote in peacetime. Why are we deploying the National Guard now? It's not only are we going overseas to fight in ridiculous wars, but now, my lovelies, we're deploying our own troops here. And I'm very curious of what this would mean for the greater picture for the DNC convention here in Chicago. And I wonder if Governor J.B. Pritzker will be doing the same. Chances are, most likely, yes. Hell, I remember during the lockdowns when the National Guard closed off certain areas of Chicago. I remember that. Continuing on. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, a Democrat, who used to patrol the subway when he was a police officer, said he sent about 1,000 additional city police officers into the subway in February after a January uptick in assaults and thefts. He has emphasized that crime remains rare on one of the world's largest subway networks, with about 6 felon crimes a day, mostly thefts, on a service that meets more than 4 million daily trips. On Wednesday, he said he was bringing back bag checks, an occasional practice used by New York Police Department, in which officers would set a table near subway turnstiles and pick out members of the commuting crowds for searches. It didn't have to be this way. Riders Alliance, a New York commuter advocacy group, said Hochul's deployment of the National Guard would have the opposite psychological impact than intended. While well-intended, deploying troops to the subway is more likely to increase the perception of crime among people who don't ride public transit than to protect the millions of people on platforms and trains. Danny Perlstein, a spokesperson for the Alliance, wrote in an email. Because yes, perception drives reality, but it's one thing for me to read about it. It's another thing to show it. This was never the answer. So look at that. Container inspection. So can you imagine if you're running late to work or something and, hey, how come the line's so long? They're doing container inspection. Do you have any idea how much additional stress this is going to cause? Even that lady's looking like this is ridiculous. Like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Does she look like a criminal? These two people look like regular individuals just using the train, okay? Like, come on. Everyone is now an enemy to the surveillance state. That means you, everybody. So that means if you're using a New York subway, you're going to be patted down and treated like a criminal too. Just like how they... Say it with me, folks. What could possibly go wrong with this scenario? I'm sorry, just one more time. We just got to see her face. Just one more time. One more time. Because even she's realizing how ridiculous this is. Yeah, right there. That's the face that says it all. This is insanity. Hey, look alive there, buddy. Get off your cell phone. Okay, all right, well, talk to you tomorrow. Why? I mean, you know what? One day, they're gonna pick a random person, and there's gonna be like a sex toy in there. Okay, like it's gonna be the most awkward thing ever. If they haven't seen it already, they will. They're picking out random people. Random people. Just follow orders. Man, it is amazing, you know, just how subservient Americans can be. You know, especially, hey, New Yorkers, you know, New Yorkers, listen, if there's any true New Yorkers left, I remember Hollywood would always say, hey, you guys would be rambunctious, a tough fighting crowd people, man. Please tell me that the gentrifiers and the Lena Dunhams and these other soy people didn't replace you. Come on, New York City. New York City, you didn't let this happen to you. Come on. This isn't the New York City of the 80s and the 90s. You guys would snap at somebody doing this to you. New Yorkers. This is a Chicagoan calling you out, man. Come on. You guys are supposed to be that standard. That high standard of hell no. Come on, New York City. Seriously? Just spreading it out. Like if we had 8 weeks. Second of all, my goodness, this has the opposite effect. For me, if I saw this, I'm thinking, oh, great, Big Brother's watching. Excuse me, sir, focus on your post. All right, stop looking at the blonde-haired lady. I see you, specialist. All right, that's his rank, by the way. He's a specialist right there. So, yay, focus on your post. Stop looking at her. Yeah, it didn't have to be this way. This was never the answer. This is from our Hardlands Media account. So continuing on. In her announcement, okay, so continue on. There were 38 robberies, 70 thefts, including pickpocketing on the subway system in February, compared to 40 robberies and 98 thefts in the same month last year, according to police data. There were 35 assaults, the same number as for February of 2023. About 90 million trips were taken on the subway over the month. Okay, in her announcement, Hochul cited an attack last week on a subway train conductor who was slashed in the neck by an unknown assailant while he leaned his head out the window on his train. My goodness, what is going on here? It was one of several recent assaults of subway workers in recent weeks, to the ire of the labor union, leading service disruptions to the following morning as MTA employees stopped work to file safety complaints. Hochul said on Wednesday that the MTA would install new security cameras in conductor cabins and that she was asking the state legislature to pass a law allowing judges to ban people who assault workers and commuters from the subway system. The deployment of the National Guard in an American city, especially as a deterrent to crime, is only opening up more trouble. It's only going to lead to the idea of how much more policing and military presence will be in American cities and towns. Because if you don't think it's going to happen in your backyard, it will. And listen, without a shadow of a doubt, it happened here in Chicago during the lockdowns, and most likely we're going to see the presence of the National Guard and maybe Reserve being deployed in Chicago for the DNC convention that'll be happening here in Chicago. So that's happening live and direct. So as always, folks, this is never the answer. New York City, New Yorkers, if you're from New York City and you commute using the subway there, tell me, does this inspire confidence in knowing that you'll be safe? Do you feel safer? Because for some reason, I just know that if this was done in the 80s and the 90s, people would push back. Maybe I have these rose-colored glasses on and I'm having an idealistic view of the past. And that's one of my problems. I'm too idealistic for my own good, just too idealistic. But I know that people would say something. This is wrong. It's not the answer. And all what I fear will happen is, even during peacetime, will the military be used to police? Will the military be used to follow people, single people out, detain people? Because we hear this threat all the time about how there's going to be fascism in the USA, how we're losing our liberties and freedoms, or we could lose our liberties and freedoms, especially with all this Trump derangement syndrome. But I must ask the people this. I think we've already lost it. And the only way this continues on is if we give our silent, obedient consent.